Hey, it's Jess, and welcome to Becoming Heartstrong. I'm a social entrepreneur, speaker, mother, and business owner, and I'm here because I believe in you, and I want you to live your full potential. My mission with this podcast is simple: to offer you perspectives, tools, and inspiration to help you live with more courage, rebuild after setbacks, and strengthen yourself from the inside out. So each week, I talk to thought leaders, authors, experts, and everyday amazing people who share their stories and outlooks that help you get from where you are today to where you want to be tomorrow. Let's get started. Do you ever feel like you have something great inside of you, but you just aren't sure how to bring it to life? Do you ever need some clarity on how to get from where you are to where you want to be? I'm so excited to share a free guide I created just for you. This tool has helped me in my own times of struggle and doubt. It's called Your Future Self Guide. This mini course includes a future self visualization I recorded, a series of journal questions, and some insights from me about overcoming self-doubt and embracing self-leadership. You can download it for free at jessicalindberg.com/futureself. That's jessicalindberg.com/futureself. Let's get back to the show. Hey everyone, welcome to Becoming Heartstrong. On today's episode, we are going to attempt to answer this question. What happens when you wake up and realize the good fortune, status, and accolades for which you've worked so hard have left you overburdened and burned out? My guest today is Traci Schubert Barrett, who is one of the founding members of HGTV, a channel that I personally still love to watch, and so does my family. Traci enjoyed a ton of success building a billion-dollar media empire, but after 2 decades in the television industry with family and plenty of life ahead, success was no longer the beacon that it once was. And so today, Traci owns a company called Navigate the Journey, where she helps leaders and entrepreneurs guide them on a path of discovering who they are, especially when they're in times of transition, and asking this very same question about what they want out of their lives and their business, with really the goal of helping people reach their full potential, which is also a mission of mine. So I love that. Welcome to the podcast, Traci.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So I got to start out by asking you, how did you start HGTV? I'm so curious personally, were you in a room with just a bunch of friends? Where did the idea come from? The vision? How did you do it?
Yeah. So actually, it was the idea and vision of a man named Ken Lowe, who was our CEO and founder. And, he had been in the radio industry for a long time, and knowing that the radio industry was not blossoming, it was really cable television. This is back in the early 90s. And cable television was like what the internet is today. It was the wild frontier. Everybody wanted to be a part of it. People were launching cable networks left and right. Many of them were failing. And he had an idea for a cable network that was going to be all about home shows and gardening shows and building shows. And so he just gathered like a group of people, and those people gathered some people, and we had just a couple offices and just about 40 people, I guess. I can't, you could fit us all in a room basically. And we launched the network. And so for several months, it was just an idea that we're piecing together and trying to sell and trying to get money and funding and all of that, and programs. And it was a scrappy group of entrepreneurs. And I always tell everybody, when you see something, come to life and become this huge company, we often forget that it had a beginning, and that beginning looks very much like any other startup, any other company. And the chance of failure was just as strong. We launched with 25 other networks at the same time, and only 2 of them survived, HGTV being one of them. So the failure rate was really high, just like in any business. So many businesses fail within the first 5 years. So it was the best entrepreneurial training ground. I really fell in love with building something, growing something, being part of a scrappy team, really feeling the excitement, but also the fear. All of those things, I think, are some of the most beautiful, wonderful parts of building a business. And so I was really fortunate that I joined something that survived and thrived and still is successful today and also means a lot to people. I think that was one of the most fortunate things, is to be part of something that I'm really proud of and that means something to a lot of people. A lot of people love
Mhm.
HGTV, and that always warms my heart when I hear it.
Well, home is such an important thing to people, right? I mean, it's just
Mhm.
it's that it's there, it's so central to, we all want to feel at home. Home matters so much to us. I mean, creating a space that we want to be in, I think for many people is really important. And so it's almost like you touched that almost like visceral desire of all of us to have home, and to create spaces that we love. I think that's really, I think you like almost touch that emotional need, which is why, I mean, one of the things I think why it's been so successful. I'm curious, like you said it was scrappy, and I love that you said, like, when you look at something that's big and that's here, it's like we forget the humble beginnings, that riding the edge of fear. I mean, anyone who's done an entrepreneurial journey knows what that feels like. You know, how do you, like, looking back, I guess, on that, what are maybe a couple things where you're like, this was sort of the turning point in getting us from, concern or fear to like that success, that if you were going to recreate something today, that you would want those ingredients to be part of it?
For me, it was the mission and the vision and the values.
Mm.
We were so clear on those things, those 3 elements, and didn't waver. So I write about this in my book, about
Mhm.
how HGTV, formed a mission and decided that we were gonna stay true to it and used it as a filter. And so when I'm working with
Mhm.
businesses, I often tell them these early stories of how decisions should be made against the mission of the company, the why that you exist. And when you stray too far from that, you tend to make bad decisions and you
Mm.
tend to try to be all things to all people, and that's not the formula for business success. And then having a vision, knowing what you want to become, knowing where you're headed, and then communicating that to everybody. That was a very important part of,
Mhm.
my job as one of the leaders, was to constantly communicate to my staff, this is where we're going, this is why we're doing it. Like, these decisions are rooted in something. Like, I'm not just, giving you instruction and saying just do it
Mhm.
robotically. I want you to understand the why and the where behind it. And then, of course, the core values. The core values were established early on and operationalized and talked about. And I think the people that drank the Kool-Aid stayed for a long time and also were very protective over those values.
Mm.
So if you pushed up against them, if you violated them, there wasn't a lot of space for that. Whether you were
Mhm.
a part of the team or whether you were a client, we really wanted to maintain internally what we were trying to portray externally to people. And I
Mhm.
think, HGTV and Scripps Networks has been bought and sold a few times since I left. And I think that while I was there, I feel like we did hold true to those principles.
Mhm.
And it was the secret sauce to our success.
Mhm. I think that's really challenging in business today or ever. I mean, I've worked my past life was working in marketing and advertising for some agencies and worked on really large brands. And one of the challenges, it's like the people at the top have a vision, right? But if it's not experienced by people, on the ground, or who are interacting with your brand, it's kind of not very authentic. And it's like, making sure, I think that you're so right about vision. You have to sell the vision not only to the people outside of your organization, but within the organization,
Mhm.
right? So that you can be seamless of sorts, right? Through that. And so I think that's applicable to a business, to a family, to an
Mhm.
organization. Like those simple things of mission, values, and vision are, like, I think, such a good point, that I think it's simple, but we forget that,
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
world today. Yeah,
I
I think
think
that's
that
super
you
important.
just touched on something that is so key, which is leadership. Like, your leaders
Mm.
need to be communicating these things, and it needs to go all the way down to, every single person and corner of the organization. And so if you don't have good leadership and you don't have leaders that are committed to not just the mission and vision and values of the company, but also to their own growth, then it's really hard to sustain these things. Then mission, vision, value just become like words on a paper, and that they're stuck in a
Mhm.
corner, hung on a wall, but nobody really executes them or pays attention to them.
Mhm.
It really takes
Mhm.
strong leadership and people who are committed to those tenets of the organization, but also to growth themselves.
Mhm. Yeah, one of the things I was thinking about when I was reading through your story and looking through your book and preparing is just something that has been on my mind a lot lately is I just feel like there's a lack of courageous leadership in our world today. And I think people are making policies and rules about things that they don't ever have to actually live out, you know? I have a son with some special needs, and I spend a lot of time dealing with healthcare people, and I see it, as you look through organizations of what they say they are and what your experience is. And, and I think it's hard to be a courageous leader today as well. And I think you touched on something too. It's like to be a courageous leader, I also think you have to start with self leadership. And so I'm wondering if you can talk just a little bit about that. It's like there's the buzzword of leadership is out here, but really it starts with me and you and us as individuals. And like I'm a big believer in self leadership myself. And so you write about that, you talk about that. Share some of your thoughts here and how people can. I mean, I think the beginning point is how do people become a self leader so that they can be a courageous leader?
Yeah, yeah, those are great insights. And I think I always have people that I'm coaching think about first their own mindset around leadership.
Mm,
Some of us,
mm,
especially from corporate environments, leadership is just a means to an end. It's a part of climbing the corporate ladder. And so it becomes a goal and not a mission, right? So people
mm,
will be put into positions of leadership and they're not really trained or understand that
mhm,
leadership is a skill. It's not,
mhm,
we're not born leaders. We may have certain traits that make us good leaders, but it is a skill just like anything else. Just like if you're
mhm,
trying to learn to be an artist or to be a teacher or to be a speaker, those skills are skills that you have to cultivate. Leadership is a skill you have to cultivate. And so you first have to realize like what a gift it is to be a leader. You are leading a group
mhm,
of human beings who are looking to you for guidance. And so you have to start with yourself. You have to say, okay, who am I? What do I think about leadership? What type of leader do I want to be? Where are my gifts and talents? What are my blind spots that I need to work on? And then thinking about, what is it that I do well? Why do I do it? How do I do it? So it's a big examination of
mhm,
understanding who you are, how you're uniquely designed, the impact that you can bring, which is unique from other leaders, and how do you want to guide and influence not just the people that you're guiding and influence, but also yourself. And so one of
mhm,
the things that you just touched on were policies and things that people create, and they're distant from the people who are actually executing it. So you think about like a general telling the troops to do something, but he's so far from the front lines that the people on the front lines are like, wait, what? Why? I don't understand.
mhm,
Like, does he not get or she not get what we're trying to do or what the obstacles are or why that's not going to work or why it might work, but it's going to be really difficult? And great leaders, this is the beauty of emotional intelligence. Like the number one trait, emotional intelligence trait, and leaders that are super successful and kind of revered is empathy. And
mm,
so leaders with high empathy are leaders that are really aware of what people are going through. They not only understand and are able to manage their own emotions, but they can read the room. And
mhm,
so, when you can bridge that gap,
mhm.
I always say that is the gap between a good leader and a really great leader is
Yeah.
somebody who has emotional intelligence and can bridge that gap. And self-leadership is really just another way of talking about emotional intelligence.
Mhm. I think that is so key. And I'm just wondering, like, in the world that we live in, there's such a gap of that, frankly, and I think I was having a conversation with someone about this the other day, actually. And it was like when there's a gap of of empathy and emotional intelligence in our leaders, it creates distrust from customers or people who are being led. I'm using air quotes for those of you listening, by that person. And so it's like, how do we, I mean, this is a kind of a big question, but it's like, you've talked to a lot of different people who work at a lot of different places. Like, how do we shift that in the world? Like, how do we shift that so that have better leaders who are more empathetic, who are leading people? Cause that's really how you make change in the world, right?
Mhm,
What,
mhm.
I mean, do you have any ideas around that?
Well, I think that what I hope is that people, will make that courageous step to be a leader.
Mm,
That if you feel like you have the traits inside you and you know you can make a difference, it's going to be a difficult journey and it's not always easy, but take that step. We need
mhm,
great leaders and
mhm,
take it for the right reason. I think the
mhm,
reason why we end up with bad leaders is because those leaders are not wanting or pursuing leadership for the right reasons. They're
mm,
pursuing it for those common success metrics like money or
mhm,
power or
mhm,
fame or accolades, to be revered. And those are fine things to pursue, but if they're the only things you're pursuing, that's when we start to see leadership become corrupted, right?
mhm,
So, what we need to do is have people who understand and redefine success for themselves with different metrics because they want to make a positive impact, because they want to help people, because they want to change just their little part of the world. And so, if that's your intent, then you're going to be a great leader. If you invest in the skill and you have ambition for the mission of your company or whatever it is that you're going to lead, then I would put all my chips on you. Like I would bet that
mm,
you're going to be a great leader. And so what is happening, unfortunately, is we kind of just throw our hands up in the air and we say, oh, I can never change things. Or, oh, we see this in politics. We see this in corporate
mm,
America. We see this in all where people are just like, oh my gosh, it's just too crazy. I can't get involved. I can't try. I can't affect change. I'm just going to either take it or I'm going to just walk away and start something on my own or just
mm,
what or just be silent. And to me I'm like I feel like you can affect change. I feel like,
mm,
if more of us lean in and aren't scared to challenge our own identities and to challenge our own success metrics and to really believe that we can make a difference, then we can make a difference, and it starts small, but then, we'll get there. And I do think I have 2 teenage daughters and who are getting ready to go off to college, and, the way that they look at the world and what they see that we've pulled back too much. They see that
mm,
we haven't leaned into leadership and haven't leaned into, really trying to affect positive change. And so I see the determination in their eyes and I encourage them all the time, like, I'm sorry that, you're entering into kind of a divisive, messed up world right now.
yeah,
But I do believe that, you can create change. I can still create change. I'm not gonna go out to pasture or hang up. Like, I'm gonna try my best to build people up and be the wind beneath their wings. But I think you've really hit on something that's just so important. It's how do we bridge the gap? How do we turn the Titanic around? And how do we really value good leadership and great character and proper perspective and good mission? How can we help promote that? And I know you're trying to do that through your podcast and through the work that you do. And I think that when we support each other and lift each other up and we try to get those messages and we help other people get to where they need to be and to be successful for all the right reasons, that we can turn the Titanic and we
mhm,
can see change. We just can't give up hope. It's either hope or fear. Those are
right.
our 2 choices. And I
They
have to
are.
rest in hope.
Yeah. I think that one of the things that I've learned just in all the things that I've done, it's like the idea of change systemically is a great idea. And I used to be, working in a lot of areas for that and different things. And now I'm more interested in like changing people, because
Mm,
ultimately the people are going to change the system. And I
yes.
think like the work you're doing with individuals is so important, because that's really one person at a time. Back to what we started with, how it starts small. You get enough people who have enough courage, who have enough vision, who have enough emotional intelligence. That's why what you're doing is so impactful and so important.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And I try to hold on to that, try to my own
Yeah.
mission. I had this amazing corporate career, and I think this phase of my life feels very different. It feels
Mm,
very individual, and it feels very much like I'm trying to take what I learned over all those decades and really just sort of help the leaders of today, get where they want to be and be better versions of themselves and focus
mhm,
on who they want to become and what they really want out of life. Because I do think we've realized, like, this hustle culture, this, fame obsessed culture, all of these things aren't serving us very well.
mhm,
It seemed good on the outset, but it's really not serving us well. So how can we all just take a collective breath, which the pandemic helped us do? Unfortunately, I
mhm.
feel like we're right back into the hamster
Yeah.
wheel. But, how can we just remind ourselves to take a pause and reevaluate, what do we really want, and how are we uniquely designed to positively impact
Mm,
the world?
mm. I love that. So I want to talk about how you got to this place, like how you got to doing the work that you're doing now. So you helped start HGTV, you were part of the team, you all built the business, you were in it for I think 2 decades, you said. And then what happened? How did you decide it was time for you to do something else?
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. I mean, I always tell people there was no push out, it was a pull. And
Mm,
it took kind of years to figure out what was going on, but I hit kind of that midlife, mid-career crossroads when you're kind of in your 40s. And I checked all the boxes, and I was like, wow, I've been told all this time that I could have it all, as a woman. And I kind of think maybe I do by society's standards. I've got the big job and the corner office and the great staff and working for a glamorous company, and I'm going to all these shindigs and doing all these things, and I've got the husband and the kids and all the things, but yet I still feel a little restless. It wasn't like I was
mm,
unhappy. I was just like, I kept saying, "What if there's more?" Which is the title of my book. That was the
yep.
question that I kept saying when I would look out the window. I was like, "What if there's more? What if there's something else for me to discover? What are the next boxes I'm supposed to be checking off, because I don't see them? Does that mean I create them for myself? And what does it look like to create something of my own and figure
Mm,
those questions out?" I was flying all over the country. I was, had 2 little kids at home, and I just felt like I was life was living me. I wasn't really living it. So how
mm,
can I hit the reset button and really figure out what I want for this second half of my life? And so I walked away, and my bosses weren't happy. I write about this in the book, like the
mm,
experience and the buildup of resigning, and then what I felt like after. What would I be outside of HGTV? I had basically grown up
mhm,
there. Everybody knew me as this company. I knew myself as this company. So what happens to your identity? What happens to how you feel about yourself and how other people feel about you when you walk away from something like that? And then how do you answer the big questions and solve the riddle of what should I do next? And so that was my crossroads. I took a leap of faith. It was very tempting to stay comfortable and just say, "Hey, just ride it out to 60. Just, do that. It's easy. You've got everything you need here. Just see it to the end." That would have been the easy, comfortable, and frankly, like, most people take that path. And I just
mhm.
decided, you know what? Let's see if I can't try something different.
Hey there, it's Jess, and we're taking a brief pause to highlight this show's sponsor, the Heartstrong Collective. It's more than just a nonprofit, it's a social movement I founded to inspire people worldwide to embody resilience and grow through challenges. Through the Heartstrong Collective, we're dedicated to empowering caregiving families, investing in the next generation, and leaving the world just a little bit better than we found it. To learn more about our mission and how you can get involved, Visit us at theheartstrong.com. What do you think was inside of you that gave you just that little bit extra amount of courage to take the leap? Like you just said, most people would ride it out. And I think you're absolutely right, because success, you're all the things you just said are things like people dream about doing in their life, right? I mean, and having the ability to do, or the circles to travel in. It's like, what was that like still small part of you that said, I mean, you're asking the question, obviously, but you also took the action, which that's a big gap for people sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. I think I have a strong faith, and so I was really tapping into kind of that voice and sort of the calling of what could be next.
Mhm.
It wasn't like it all made sense. People thought I was crazy at work. People thought I was crazy in my life, in my personal life,
Mhm.
because it wasn't like I was married to some big investment banker or something like that. My husband at the
Mhm.
time was doing nonprofit, in the ministry world. So it wasn't like he had this big flashy job and I could just take a
Right.
break and knit or something. Like that wasn't like what was in the cards. So it was a big scary leap of faith. I just feel like I was I knew that the worst that could happen would be failure. Like I would leave and I would be devastated and my identity would crumble and I would not be able to find something for myself on the other side, or I'd be swimming in a pool of regret. And I could probably pick myself up, dust myself off, and figure something out and go back into the television industry.
Mhm. Mm.
That would be, I knew that was a possibility, and I knew that that would be extremely difficult to navigate. But then I knew, well, the flip side is that I could find something I really love. I could reinvent myself. I could start something that I own and that is super
Mhm.
flexible and that allows me to create a life that gives me more balance and challenges me more. Because basically, I was kind of on autopilot at HGTV.
Sure.
I mean, it was at that point, I could do it in my sleep. So I decided to again hold on to the hope of this could be something great. And I remember one of my friends saying to me, I write about this in the book too, where I kept saying, "Well, I've had this big successful career and that was the pinnacle of my success. And now from here on out, I'm just going to live a quiet life and maybe have a little gig on the side and be with the kids." And she was like, "Well, what if that wasn't the pinnacle of your success? What if
Mm.
that was all leading up to what you're going to do next?" And when
Mm.
she said that to me, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm thinking way too small here. That what if my impact and what I could do and what I could accomplish could actually mean more to me, be greater, and have a greater impact than what I've already experienced?" And so that was the excitement that propelled me. I don't
Mm.
need to be world famous and a household name like HGTV, but I do want to feel that connection to myself and to other people and use my gifts in a way that feels so authentic and so right. And I want
Mm.
that for other people. So when I'm working with other people, I've walked in their shoes. And so I can say, I know exactly how you feel. And I'm going to help you answer these questions for yourself because I do know that there's more for you. We just need to figure out what that more is.
Mhm. Well, it's also like how we define success. And you talk a little bit about this as well, is that, I mean, some people say first half of life, second half of life. There's, people write about that idea. But I think it's really true. It's like the world will tell us what success is on the default, right? And you had all of those things, all those boxes to check. So it sounds to me like you were really redefining success for yourself. And you're helping others do that too. So I'm curious, how have you redefined success? What does it look like for you now? And then in the work that you're doing, sort of on a collective way, like what are you seeing others redefine success as?
So the metrics that I use, and the subtitle of my book is Finding Significance Beyond Success, and it's
Mhm.
that combination of I want you to feel like you have reached a level of success that is
Mhm.
where you want to be. So I want you to be financially independent. I want you to feel valued. I want you to feel known in the way you want to be known and carry the title you want to carry. I think those are all great things. But I want you to also take it a step further. I want you to figure out what significant impact means to you. Because what I've
Mhm.
found with people in work, if you feel like you're creating a difference, if you feel like there's a sense of significance in what you're doing, it doesn't have to be big, by society standards, but it means something to you. You feel like there's significant impact happening. And usually that significant impact is happening by and through the use of your gifts and talents. And so it's that combination of those success metrics with the significance metrics. And when you can define what that looks like for you, which I help clients do, like literally, let's define these metrics, then you have clarity. Then you can say, I don't have to push beyond this. What I want to do is rest in it. Right. So if
Mm.
we are only chasing the success metric of money, then all we do is end up collecting more things, right? Because there's never enough money. And there's always
Mm.
somebody else around you that has more money. So then you're always aspiring to be the guy or the gal that has more money. And then you're buying the things to prove that to make you, to try to fill the void. And it's the same thing my kids tell me all the time, like the big success metrics today is fame, right? How many likes,
Mm.
how many followers, how big's your platform, how well known are you? Well, guess what? There's always going to be somebody with more likes, more follows, more impressions, all of those things, right? And so if we're only chasing that, it's also a winless game. So when we redefine these things and we say, well, actually to be content and to stay in my lifestyle, this is the amount of money I need to make. And I don't really need to make more than that. That's going to keep me happy and that's going to help pay for the kids' college or whatever it is, and we just rest in that, then it doesn't matter to me how much money Sally has or Joe has. Good for them. Great for them. I feel great
Mhm.
and content in what I have. So you see the
Mhm.
difference? It's like,
Oh, yeah.
how can we find, how can we redefine these things so that we're living a content and fulfilled life, period? Not by
Mhm.
anybody else's metrics, but by our own. And this is where all the great breakthrough happens, because we are unhappy when we are chasing things that ultimately we know we don't need, but we're just doing it because everybody else is looking. And we've got to
Mhm.
break that cycle. We have to break that cycle, or we are not going to find true contentment.
Right. And just because someone has a million followers doesn't mean they're the most interesting person. Just
Right.
like someone who has the great degree doesn't mean they're the smartest person.
Mhm.
It's like we have to dispel those things. I even find with my kids, like my son, we were in the car the other day and he was like telling me some fact. He's in high school. And I was like, well, how do you know that's true? And he's like, well, I saw it on YouTube. And I was like,
Mhm.
well, and so it's like, let's go back to that. Like, just because so and so said it with a million followers doesn't mean it's true. And so it's almost like that, you talked about mission, vision, and values. It's like we each need to define that for ourselves so that we, like you, HGT was, in the early days was filtering everything through that. I think what I hear you saying is the same thing. It's like you want people to define that for themselves so that when, so and so gets the car or the handbag or the vacation house, like that may or may not be part of your mission and your vision for your life that actually creates significance. And I think that's, we spend so much of our time like looking at other people because we have a culture that allows us, like it's on our phones,
Yep.
every moment. But it's like getting that quiet, back to self leadership, right? Back to like that
Mhm.
still small voice. And also like I thought it was really interesting, you mentioned just quickly that your faith is important to you, like that. I think I've noticed like people who have some sort of paradigm of a bigger picture that they are living their life through. Like I think that helps too to sort of quiet some of those external messages. Do you find that in people you work with?
Oh, completely. I feel like
Yeah.
it is essential. If
Mhm.
you cannot see a world outside of yourself, if you are not thinking about something bigger than yourself, if you're not drawn to something bigger than yourself, if you're not connected and tethered to your spirit and to your soul, and really understanding, why the world goes round and round and why you're on it. If you don't do
Mm.
that type of work, then it's really hard to get where I'm trying to get you to go,
Mhm.
to feel successful and significant, to understand what your positive impact is, or to even believe that you're uniquely designed. So,
Mhm.
if you can't even start with, okay, I know that I'm uniquely designed and that I have a fingerprint on the outside that is unique, and I already know that to be true, but I also have a fingerprint on the inside that is unique.
Mhm.
And so how can I tap into that? And then what does that mean for the greater good of the world and for
Mhm.
the greater meaning in the world? And I think, when we talk about self-awareness or self-actualization or reaching our full potential, those are all nice words, but when we go and pull those words apart, we realize that they're resting in the spiritual. They're
Mhm.
resting in the greaterness of
Mhm.
this life. And so I'm always encouraging people to explore that. I know faith doesn't feel comfortable to everybody. And I know today, now more than ever, it's all just been distorted and used. And although I always remind my kids and everybody that this has been going on for generations, right? Back in biblical
Mhm.
times, people were
Mhm.
misusing religion and all of those things for power and gain. But
Mhm.
all of religion aside is like, what does faith mean to you? And what does a spirit mean to you? And what does God mean to you? And what does the greater universe mean to you? And if you push those questions away, then you're robbing yourself of an opportunity to really tap into the greatest part of you. So I always
Mhm.
tell people, just go there for just a little bit. Let's just
Mhm.
let's just explore for a little bit. And the people that are already there that have a strong faith or whatever, this just helps them realize, like, wow, I was uniquely designed, and why am I wasting it? Why am I
Mm.
wasting all of that's why they call them gifts for a reason. They're a gift to you, and they should be used as a gift for others. And
Mhm.
so I love when I see people's face light up when they realize, oh my gosh, I kind of knew this about myself, but I didn't know how to articulate it, but now I can. And now all of a sudden my brain is exploding with all the possibilities of what I could use those gifts for. And to me, I'm like, ah, like that's when
Mm.
all the dots have connected, and my
Yeah.
job, is essentially done because they can see it, they can articulate it, they can imagine, and then they can execute upon it.
Mhm. I think you said it that so beautifully, and I've seen that in people as well. It's like we're mind, body, and spirit as humans. We have all of those pieces and parts to ourselves, and I think at this point in my life that so much of what we're going through, it's really a spiritual journey, like you said, of tapping into our significance and the reason that we were created. And that if we do that, like that's what helps us get through challenges. That's what helps us navigate the journey. That's what helps. It's like the key that people are afraid of. And you're right, we do live in a culture where it's kind of you're not supposed to talk about that, you're not supposed to say that. I guess I'm saying in the confines of business or in the confines of leadership even, but I agree with you. It's very, to me, impossible to separate the two.
Mhm.
And I'm glad that you're giving people space for that. I mean, it's not, you're not saying this is what you should think, but it's like open
Yep.
and make a space for that in your life and invite that in and sit with it for a minute. And I think that is really how people do find wholeness and significance. And I think that, I don't know, I just think it's a super important part of like personal growth and development. So I think that's amazing. I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about your strategic life map, like the tool that you use with people, not in detail, but just, tell us what it is. And maybe if someone's listening and they're like interested in what you're talking about, they're going through sort of this, they're navigating their own journey, they're going through a shift. Like, you've built this tool. I mean, if you go on Tracy's website, like, which we'll link in the show notes, she has some really great specifics. And I think specifics are important. We also live in a world that has like all these ideas and personal development, and there's a quote a day. But at the end of the day, it's like brass tacks, right? We have to have tools and practices to get us from where we are today to where we want to be tomorrow. What does that look like, and how do you use that in your work?
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that everybody loves the idea of living your best life. And I want to be the best version of myself. And I want to find my purpose and I want to follow my passion. Like that's what we see on social media all the time and what people are preaching from the stage. And it all sounds good, but the person listening is like, it sounds great. I don't know how to do it. Like it's all elusive and I want to live my best life and I want to follow my purpose, but I don't know what that is or how to get there. And that's when people come to me. You know, sometimes it's at a crossroads. Sometimes it's like, I don't want to waste my days. So help me figure this out and articulate it. And we use the tools that we use when we're helping businesses scale and grow. You know, the same tools we use to build HGTV is, you know, those traditional tried and true, like creating a mission, creating a vision, understanding your core values, understanding who you are, you know, I have my master's in psychology. So I do a lot of exercises around, you know, reframing, your patterns and really thinking about your mindsets. And I have 3 key mindsets that I take people through and really creating that, you know, legacy, vision. And then most importantly, like you just said, is executing upon it. How do you execute upon it? And really staying with my coaching clients and making sure that they're executing upon it and that they are really making that vision become a reality so that it's not just like a daydream. So there's a lot of different exercises involved and I mix and match depending on where the person is, what brought them to me and what is it that they want to accomplish. And so I'll just pull from my toolkit, you know, whatever the tools are that or the exercises are that I think are going to get them there and then put them in whatever order I feel like is going to help achieve the goal. So for each person, it's a little bit different, but I think those, you know, every person that goes through it is going to leave with a plan. They're going to leave with a destination. They're going to know where they want to go and they're going to know how to get there. And then I'm going to help them execute upon it. It's super fun. I love doing it. I love seeing lives transform. And, you know, I know there are a lot of processes and tools and things out there, which I love. I love so many different versions that people have out there. I just think that my point of difference is really my facilitation, how I get you there. And I just love hearing people's stories. I can't get enough of people's stories. And it's amazing no matter how many times I've done it, how everybody has a different story. It's such, you know, talk about the spiritual element. It's you really start to realize that this life is bigger than we can ever imagine when you realize that every person's story is different.
I always say that like we're writing a bigger story, right? And so it's like we want to be part of that and not get stuck sort of in the treadmill. My husband's like, people get on the treadmill, you know, we all get on the treadmill and it's like we want to get off the treadmill and we want to live the life that is designed for us, that we're created for, because that's when we get to live with the most joy. And I think that's what you're really trying to ultimately help people do, is live a life of significance and joy for the time that we're here. I'm wondering, you know, I like to ask all of my guests a couple questions like towards the end of the episode. But before we do that, I just want you to tell people where they can find you, and we'll link it in the show notes. We'll link your book, your website, but just so they can follow along with you wherever you like to hang out.
Yeah, I like to hang out on Instagram, which is Tracy, Tracis Barrett. You can find anything and everything about me on my website, tracyschubertbarrett.com. And my company is navigatethejourney.com. And if you're looking to scale your business or life, you can go there as well. And then you can find me on LinkedIn. I love connecting with people and seeing what they're doing as well. So you can find me at Traci Schubert Barrett on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm curious, like, if you're looking back at all the things you've accomplished and all this whole journey that you've been on, what is 1 or 2 beliefs or practices that have helped you get from where you were to where you are today?
I think it really is just growing as a leader. Like, I'm so curious, and maybe it's the practice of curiosity, of asking a lot of questions. When I meet somebody and I'm intrigued by them, I'll say, "What are you reading? What are you watching? What podcast do you listen to?" Like, I'm constantly curious and open to learn from other people. And I do think, having mentors in my life and that curiosity of wanting to learn from other people is really my kind of secret weapon when it comes to success. And I know I would not be where I am today if I wasn't open like that, if I didn't want to connect with people, if I wasn't open to growth and feedback and to seek mentors. And I'd say that's my big point of difference.
I love that. And the final question I ask all of my guests is, what is one thing that you love about yourself because of hardships or challenges that you face? Like, what can you say? I love this about Tracy because it was born or built through adversity.
I would say empathy. My daughter and I were just talking about this last night, that sometimes it's hard to feel things deeply. But I do feel like my ability to feel things with my clients and to go there with my kids or to be there with my husband, to feel deeply is such a gift. Even though sometimes, like, we have it's heavy work being a coach, and it's heavy work walking alongside people. It's a heavy work being a mother. But I do feel like my own struggles and what I've had to experience, whether that's health wise or losing people in my life or work challenges, they have just given me the ability to feel for other people going through the same thing. And so adversity leads to empathy if you really rest in it. If you push down the adversity and you try to reject it, it's really hard to grow your empathy. But I've sat in it. I've sat in the hardships, and I think that has helped me connect with other people and use the adversity for good.
I love that. And that's what makes you a great coach.
I hope
So
so.
thank you so much for joining me today. I loved this conversation, and I think it's going to help a lot of people and validate, I think, like the deep feelings that a lot of people have about their life and the trajectory of their life and what they're desiring. And I think that you're like setting a stage to say it's okay to feel those things and that you can create the life that you desire.
Yes, thanks for having me. It was so fun talking to you, and I really do hope that it's connected with your audience because there is more out there.
There absolutely is, and I have no doubt it will. Thank you for listening to Becoming Heartstrong. I hope you found today's episode inspiring and applicable to your life. If you enjoyed the conversation, please subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, and share it with a friend. Before I go, this is just a quick reminder that I believe in you, and I believe that you too have the ability to become heartstrong. I'll chat with you soon.